Shyla Cummings was 20 weeks pregnant when she recorded a simple update about her pregnancy. She still had another 20 weeks ahead of her at that point. Her life was moving forward with clear plans and growing excitement about the future. This is the story of Shyla Cummings. If you have ever cared about someone who struggled to accept an ending, stay with me through every detail because the facts of what happened to her matter. If you are new to the channel or want to follow more cases like this one, make sure to like this video and subscribe to Brian Crime TV so you never miss an update.
I'm 20 weeks today, still have a whole 20 weeks left.
Now to a story you'll only see here on 11 Alive News.
That's right. So for the very first time, we're hearing from the family of the mother killed outside of a grocery store as they prepare to bury the 25-year-old next week. Shyla Cummings was shot a week ago in a car outside of a Publix on Panola Road in Stonecrest. Well, this afternoon, Isaiah Tarver is in custody, charged in that shooting.
Into her own adulthood. When her daughter, Saria, was born, 7 months before the events we are discussing, Sheila's focus sharpened even more. Motherhood did not slow her down. It gave her new purpose and direction. She became more grounded and more committed to building stability for herself and her child. Nursing school was scheduled to begin in August. That goal represented years of steady work on her own terms. She was preparing step by step for a career that would support the life she wanted for her daughter. Shyla shared moments from her daily life online. In one video, she showed the items she had purchased for her baby during a shopping trip to Burlington and Walmart. She started with neutral-colored bows that she described as cute. Then she showed small bows paired with booties, noting the careful detail on each piece. She picked up Hello Kitty bows and mittens because they stood out as especially adorable. A small outfit caught her eye next, one she called homegrown cuteness. She continued through pink and polka dot pants, a little robe featuring an elephant design, and several pairs of socks in different styles. She expressed genuine excitement about each item and how she could already picture her daughter wearing them. She also selected mini shoes as one of the first pairs she had bought for the baby. A set labeled Mom plus Dad alarm clock came with matching pants and a long-sleeve shirt. Hello Kitty items appeared again because she found the theme too appealing to pass up. Long-sleeve onesies in sizes ranging from 0 to 3 months and 3 to 6 months filled out the selections. A Nike outfit stood out as one of her favorites because of how sharp it looked. Another Hello Kitty set included a headband, socks, beads, and mittens. From Walmart, she added a sweater and pants combination along with an all-white Gerber set that came with a hat and extra layers. Pacifiers, additional mittens, and more pants rounded out the haul. Throughout the video, Shyla kept returning to how cute everything was and how quickly the purchases were adding up. She laughed about her daughter already taking all her money, but said it was worth it because the items made her happy. She noted that the baby was not due until September, yet she already had a solid start on clothing and accessories thanks to her own shopping and gifts from the gender reveal. She ended the video by thanking viewers and encouraging them to follow her page. Family members later described how Shyla approached motherhood with the same drive she brought to everything else. She remained focused on Saria and on the nursing program ahead. She was striving rather than coasting. Every step she took was aimed at creating a stable and independent future. A man named Isaiah Tarver had been part of Shyla's life for some time. He was 23 years old, and the relationship between them had followed an on-again, off-again pattern that continued long after healthier choices might have pointed toward separation. As Shyla moved further into her own plans, including time dedicated to her daughter and preparation for school, the distance between them grew. Tava was not prepared to accept that separation. Sheila's parents respected her privacy as an adult, making her own decisions. They gave her space to handle her personal matters without interference. That choice later weighed on them in ways grief often does, turning ordinary moments into points of reflection. Shyla continued to place more distance between herself and the relationship that had once been central. Her attention stayed on Saria and on the schooling that would begin in August. The ordinary routines of her days reflected someone who was looking ahead rather than back. On the evening of the incident, just after 7:20, the public store on Panola Road in Stonecrest, Georgia, operated as it did on any typical Tuesday. Shoppers moved in and out of the parking lot. Cars arrived and departed in the usual rhythm of an ordinary evening. No one in that setting anticipated anything out of the ordinary. Shyla pulled into the lot with her 7-month-old daughter Saria secured in a car seat in the back. The child was too young to understand the events unfolding nearby. Isaiah Tava was also present at the location. The two individuals knew each other from their shared history. Shyla Cummings was preparing to bury her daughter the following week after the shooting that occurred outside the grocery store. She had been 25 years old. The baby remained in the vehicle throughout the event and was unharmed. Tava was taken into custody and faced charges in connection with the shooting. Nursing school had been weeks away for Shyla at the time. Her life had been moving steadily in a positive direction, built around her child and her upcoming education. The events unfolded in a familiar parking lot on a regular weekday evening. The person responsible was someone she had known and loved for years, rather than an unknown individual. Shyla had given significant time and effort to that relationship before choosing to move forward without it. Her family emphasized her growth and her commitment to the future she was creating for herself and Saria. They spoke about the close bonds within their home and the way Shyla carried herself with quiet confidence. Motherhood had strengthened her resolve rather than limiting it. She approached each day with the same focus that had carried her toward nursing school. The relationship with Tava had lasted through repeated cycles of connection and separation. As Shyla directed more of her energy toward her daughter and her education, the pattern of the relationship created increasing tension. Her parents allowed her the room adults need to manage their own lives. That decision remained with them afterward as they reflected on every prior choice. Shyla kept her attention on the practical steps ahead, including preparations for school and care for her child. If you appreciate careful, fact-based true crime coverage that stays grounded in the record, take a moment now to like this video and subscribe to Brian Crime TV. Because a story like this can disappear into a single headline if you let it, and that would miss the most important part. Before there was a police perimeter, before there were witness statements, and before a child was left without her mother, there was a young woman whose life was still moving forward. The public record is clear about the violence. It is also clear that Shyla Cummings was more than the last minutes of her life. She was a daughter, a mother, a sister, and according to her obituary and the words of her family, someone preparing for a future in nursing. Her obituary identifies her as Shyla Alicia Cummings, born on January 25, 2001, and living in Covington, Georgia. She was 25 years old when she died on Wednesday, May 6, 2026. Those facts look small on paper, but they establish something essential. Shyla was not a vague figure in an anonymous crime report. She had a full name, a hometown, people who knew her voice, and relatives who had to absorb the impossible task of planning her funeral less than 2 weeks after her death. The obituary also names the people who survived her, and that list alone tells you how wide the impact was. Her daughter Saria was left behind. So were her parents, Shamika and Roston Cummings, along with siblings, grandparents, extended family, and friends who had to begin speaking about her in the past tense before they were ready. That matters because true crime reporting can flatten a life if it is not handled carefully. A woman is killed outside a store. A suspect is identified. A charge is announced. The story moves on. But the obituary written after Shyla's death does not read like a headline. It describes someone whose life touched many people around her, someone remembered for bringing warmth, laughter, and light into a room. It says she had a strong desire to help others and was preparing to begin nursing school in the fall. That detail appears again in later family coverage, where relatives said she planned to start nursing school in August. So when people close to her talk about interrupted plans, they are not speaking in abstractions. They are pointing to something specific, dated, and near enough to feel real. A young mother standing at the edge of the next chapter of her life. The family's public comments fill in what official police language never can. Relatives remembered Shyla as a loving mother who deeply embraced that role. Family members told reporters that she loved being a mum. That is not a small description in this case. Her daughter, Saria, was only 7 months old when Shyla was killed, and that means motherhood was not some distant label attached to her life. It was immediate. It shaped her days. It shaped her priorities. It shaped the way her family remembered her. When loved ones spoke publicly after the shooting, they did not describe a detached or drifting young woman. They described someone whose attention had turned firmly toward her child and toward the future she was trying to build.
Same exact way, adorable, beautiful.
Roston and Shamika Cummings say their daughter Shyla was killed as a result of domestic violence. They say she was on her way to start nursing school in August.
She was in the peak of her life, striving, she was the best, that was like my vacation partner and everything,
The Cummings described their daughter as a beautiful soul who loved being a mom.
Oh, she wanted a girl and she got her wish. She was an excellent mom, I think Saria came and even changed her and she became more independent, and she became more responsible.
But while she was independent, Roston says she was a daddy's girl.
She was my twin, she, everything just like me. The mother used to say, me and her used to get on her nerves.
As for parents who may have a child enduring domestic violence,
just being involved, and pay attention, and just be there for your child. That's the best you can do.
Just always find out what's going on in their day-to-day life, their private life. That's something I didn't want to get involved, because it's...
In a case surrounded by shock, that becomes one of the clearest truths on the record. Shyla's life was not standing still. Her father's grief came through in a way that made the loss feel immediate and generational at the same time. In comments cited from his interview with local news, Roston Cummings said the family needed strength and said that when he looks at Saria, he sees the same beauty he remembers in his daughter at that age. That is the kind of sentence that carries more than sorrow. It carries continuity. It carries resemblance. It carries the unbearable reality that one life has ended while another, still too young to understand anything, will grow up in the shadow of that ending. The family also said the baby was not injured and was with Shyla's parents afterward. So even in the earliest reporting, the story was never only about a homicide investigation. It was also about a family abruptly becoming caretakers of a child while mourning the mother who should have been there to raise her. Shamika Cummings, Shyla's mother, spoke about her daughter with the kind of language families use when they have watched someone push through difficult years and finally find traction. In later coverage, she said Shyla was in the peak of her life and striving. That word matters. Striving suggests effort, direction, and intent. It suggests someone not drifting with circumstances, but trying to shape them. Her mother also spoke of their closeness in personal terms that made the relationship feel lived in, not ceremonial. The picture that emerges from those remarks is of a mother and daughter who were genuinely close. The kind of close that shows up in calls, routines, and shared plans that everyone assumes there will be time for later. When a family says someone was striving, and when an obituary says she was preparing to begin nursing school, those details work together. They show momentum, they show hope, and they show exactly what was taken. The whole truth begins with the fact that Shyla had plans. Her family said she was preparing for nursing school in August. Her obituary says she wanted a future centered on helping people. Those 2 points align cleanly. They tell you that the future she imagined was not vague or far away. It had a season attached to it. It had a direction. It had purpose. There is a particular cruelty in cases like this because the timeline is so easy to picture. A few more months, and the conversation around her might have been about classes, childcare, long nights of studying, and the practical stress of balancing school with a baby. Instead, her family was forced to prepare a burial. The funeral details make that shift impossible to ignore. Obituary records show that visitation was scheduled for Monday, May 18th, 2026, and funeral services were held the next day, Tuesday, May 19th, at Scott Ward's Green Meadow Chapel in Conyers, with burial to follow at Green Meadow Memorial Gardens. Those are formal details, but they tell a painful story. Between May 6th and May 19th, her loved ones moved from shock to arrangements, from police statements to a service program, from hoping for more time to saying goodbye. There is something especially hard about seeing dates that close together. They remind you how quickly a family has to transform grief into decisions. Where, when, who speaks, who carries, who stands beside a child too young to understand why everyone is crying. The paperwork of death always looks orderly. The experience of it never is. Official reporting gives us the hard outline of the case. Family interviews give us the human depth. And somewhere between those two, the central tension of this story comes into view. Police said the person identified as the shooter was not a stranger to Shyla. Authorities publicly stated that Shyla Cummings and Isaiah Tarver knew each other. That point was repeated in multiple local reports. Family members then added context, telling reporters that the two had been involved in a long-term, on-again, off-again relationship. That distinction is important because it keeps the record clean. Police confirmed a connection. Family described its nature. Beyond that, the public reporting does not give us a full map of every conversation, every disagreement, or every private moment between them. And in a case like this, staying inside those limits is not a weakness. It is the only responsible way to tell the story. There is always a temptation, especially in emotionally charged cases, to turn blanks into certainty. People want motive explained in one sentence. They want a clean chain of cause and effect. They want to feel that if every private detail were available, the outcome would somehow make sense. But public reporting in this case does not support that kind of overreach. What it supports is narrower and more solid. It supports saying that Shyla and Tarver knew each other. It supports saying that family described the relationship as long-term and on and off. It supports saying that police later determined Tarver shot and killed Shyla and then shot himself. It does not support pretending we know every private dynamic that led into that parking lot. So if this story feels tense, it is because the facts are tense enough on their own. Nothing has to be exaggerated. The truth already carries the weight. By this point in the timeline, the facts become sharper and narrower. Wednesday, May 6, 2026, about 7:20 p.m. Publix on Panola Road in Stonecrest. Shyla Cummings there with her 7-month-old daughter. Isaiah Tarver also there. A call for shots fired. Officers arriving to find both adults wounded. Shyla pronounced dead at the scene. Tarver taken to a hospital. Investigators later saying he shot her and then shot himself. Witnesses describing a baby still strapped into the back seat. Family later confirming the child was not injured. Every one of those points appears in reporting from local news and follow-up family coverage. Together, they create a sequence that is chilling, not because it is complicated, but because it is simple. Sometimes the most haunting cases are the ones whose outline can be drawn in a handful of lines and still feel unbearable.